What if I told you that everything you've ever wanted in life, every goal you've dreamed of achieving, every version of yourself you've imagined becoming, is sitting right there waiting for you? And the only thing standing between you and that reality is the 6 inches between your ears, your mind, the most powerful tool you'll ever possess, yet the one most people never learn to truly control. Today, we're going to change that. We're going to explore how mastering your mind isn't just about positive thinking or meditation. It's about fundamentally rewiring your entire relationship with reality itself. By the time we're done here, you'll understand that controlling your mind isn't just a nice idea. It's the ultimate superpower that determines whether you live as the architect of your destiny or remain a passenger in your own life. Chapter 1. The Prison of Unconscious Thinking. Most people live their entire lives as prisoners in their own minds, and they don't even realize the bars exist. Every single day, you're bombarded with approximately 60 to 70,000 thoughts. That's one thought every 1.2 seconds during your waking hours. But here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. According to neuroscience research, 95% of these thoughts are exactly the same as the ones you had yesterday. And tomorrow, you'll think the same thoughts again. You're literally running the same mental programs on repeat, day after day, year after year, creating the same experiences, the same emotions, the same limitations, and wondering why your life never changes. Think about this for a moment. If your thoughts create your reality, and you're thinking the same thoughts every single day, then you're literally creating the same reality every single day. You wake up, and within moments, your brain automatically starts playing the greatest hits album of your limitations. I can't do this because I'm not good enough, because this won't work, because life is hard, because. And just like that, before you've even gotten out of bed, you've already sentenced yourself to another day of the same life you've been living. But it gets worse. Not only are most of your thoughts repetitive, but neuroscientists have discovered that approximately 80% of our daily thoughts are negative. That means out of those 60 to 70,000 thoughts you're having every day, roughly 56,000 of them are working against you. Imagine having an enemy following you around all day, whispering discouraging things in your ear every few seconds. That's literally what's happening inside your own head. Except the enemy is you. The unconscious mind is like a massive iceberg. The conscious mind, the part you think you're in control of, is just the tip floating above water. But beneath the surface lies this enormous mass of unconscious programming that's actually running your life. Your unconscious mind processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second, while your conscious mind can only handle about 40 bits per second. That means your unconscious mind is processing information at a rate that's roughly 275,000 times faster than your conscious awareness. This unconscious programming was installed mostly during your first 7 years of life, when your brain was primarily operating in what neuroscientists call theta brainwave states. During these years, your brain was like a sponge, downloading everything around you without any critical thinking or filtering. Every limiting belief your parents had about money, relationships, success, and life in general got downloaded directly into your unconscious operating system. Every time someone told you to be realistic, to not dream too big, to play it safe, That information got hardwired into your neural networks. And here's the kicker. Your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined, between what happened to you and what you simply observed happening to others. If you watched your parents struggle financially while you were growing up, your unconscious mind recorded that as, money is hard to get, money causes stress, rich people are greedy, I'm not worthy of abundance. These programs are now running in the background of your mind 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, influencing every decision you make, every opportunity you notice or ignore, every action you take or avoid taking. The tragedy is that most people never question these programs. They assume that the voice in their head is actually them, that their automatic thoughts are just the way they are, that their limiting beliefs are facts about reality rather than programs that can be changed. They live their entire lives fighting against their own unconscious programming and wondering why success feels so difficult, why they keep sabotaging themselves, why they can't seem to break through to the next level no matter how hard they try. But what if I told you that this prison has no locks? What if the bars you think are keeping you trapped are actually just illusions? The moment you realize that you are not your thoughts, that you are the observer of your thoughts, everything changes. You begin to understand that you have the power to choose which thoughts to focus on, which beliefs to accept, and which mental programs to keep running or shut down completely. Chapter 2. The Science of Mental Reprogramming. Your brain is not fixed. For decades, scientists believed that after a certain age, your brain was essentially set in stone, that your neural pathways were permanent, and that you were stuck with whatever mental programming you had acquired. This belief kept millions of people trapped in patterns they thought they couldn't change. But then neuroscience made one of the most revolutionary discoveries in human history: neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to reorganize, adapt, and create new neural pathways throughout your entire life. Every single thought you think, every emotion you feel, every action you take is literally rewiring your brain. When neuroscientists put London taxi drivers under brain scans, they discovered that their hippocampus, the region associated with spatial navigation, was significantly larger than average. Years of navigating complex city streets had physically changed their brains. When they studied musicians, they found that the areas responsible for finger movement and auditory processing were dramatically enlarged. The brain had literally reorganized itself based on repeated practice and focus. This means that your current mental programming, no matter how deeply ingrained it seems, is not permanent. Those neural pathways that create your automatic thoughts, your emotional reactions, your limiting beliefs, they're all just patterns of electrical and chemical activity that have been strengthened through repetition. And just like any pattern, they can be changed, weakened, and replaced with new ones. Here's how it works. Every time you have a thought, your brain releases chemicals called neurotransmitters. These chemicals create specific electrical patterns across your neural networks. When you think the same thought repeatedly, you literally strengthen the neural pathway associated with that thought. It's like walking through a field of grass. The first time you walk through, you barely leave a trace. But if you walk the same path every day for months, you create a clear, well-defined trail. Your thoughts work exactly the same way. The incredible news is that your brain doesn't care whether the thoughts you're thinking are positive or negative. Empowering or limiting, true or false. It simply strengthens whatever neural pathways you use most frequently. This means you have the power to literally rewire your brain for success, confidence, abundance, and happiness by consciously choosing which thoughts to think repeatedly. Dr. Joe Dispenza's groundbreaking research has shown that people can create measurable changes in their brain structure and chemistry through focused mental rehearsal alone. In his studies, participants who mentally practiced new behaviors and thought patterns showed the same neural changes as people who physically practiced those same behaviors. Their brains couldn't tell the difference between what they imagined and what they actually experienced. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think that positive thinking alone is enough to change their lives. They try to slap some affirmations on top of years of negative programming and wonder why nothing changes. That's like trying to plant flowers in soil that's full of weeds. The weeds will always choke out the flowers unless you first clear the ground. Real mental reprogramming requires 3 essential components. First, you must become aware of your current programming. You can't change what you're not aware of. Most people are completely unconscious of their thought patterns, their emotional reactions, their automatic behaviors. They're like someone driving a car while sleepwalking. Second, you must consciously interrupt the old patterns. Every time you catch yourself thinking a limiting thought or feeling a disempowering emotion, you must consciously choose to stop and redirect your mental energy. Third, you must consistently practice new thought patterns until they become as automatic as the old ones. The process of neuroplasticity typically follows a predictable timeline. For the first few days of practicing new thought patterns, it feels awkward and forced, like writing with your non-dominant hand. Your brain is literally creating new neural pathways, and this requires focused attention and energy. After about a week of consistent practice, the new patterns start to feel slightly more natural. Your brain is beginning to automate the new pathways. After approximately 21 days, the new patterns have become significantly stronger, though the old pathways haven't completely disappeared yet. After 66 days of consistent practice, neuroscientists have found that the new behavior or thought pattern has become truly automatic. But here's what's absolutely crucial to understand. Your old neural pathways never completely disappear. They become dormant, like unused roads that grass grows over, but they're still there. This is why people can fall back into old patterns during times of stress or emotional upheaval. Your brain defaults to the strongest, most familiar pathways when it's under pressure. This is why consistent practice isn't just important in the beginning, it's essential for maintaining your new mental programming throughout your life. The most exciting part of neuroplasticity research is the discovery that you can literally change your brain's default mode network. This is the network of brain regions that's active when your mind is at rest, when you're not focused on anything specific. For most people, this default mode is dominated by negative self-talk, worry about the future, regret about the past, and general mental chatter. But through consistent mental training, you can actually rewire your default mode to be positive, present, and empowering. Chapter 3. Breaking the chains of limiting beliefs. Beliefs are not facts. Read that again. Beliefs are not facts. They're simply thoughts that you've thought so many times, with so much emotional intensity, that your brain has accepted them as truth. But just because your brain believes something doesn't make it real. Your beliefs are like the operating system of your mind, running in the background, determining what you think is possible or impossible, what you deserve or don't deserve, what you can or cannot achieve. Every single person who has ever accomplished anything extraordinary had to break through the limiting beliefs that society, their family, their education, and their own past experiences had programmed into their minds. When Roger Bannister ran the first sub-4-minute mile in 1954, he didn't just break a physical barrier, he broke a belief barrier. For decades, experts had declared that running a mile in under 4 minutes was humanly impossible. They said it would cause the human heart to explode. Yet within 1 year of Bannister's achievement, 16 other runners had broken the 4-minute barrier. The only thing that had changed was the collective belief about what was possible. Your limiting beliefs work exactly the same way. They create artificial barriers in your mind that prevent you from even attempting things that are completely within your capabilities. These beliefs operate like invisible force fields, pushing you away from opportunities, making you overlook possibilities, and convincing you to settle for less than you're capable of achieving. The most insidious thing about limiting beliefs is that they feel completely true. Your brain has collected evidence to support these beliefs throughout your entire life, conveniently ignoring any evidence to the contrary. This is called confirmation bias, and it's one of the most powerful psychological forces shaping your reality. If you believe you're not smart enough to be successful, your brain will notice every time you make a mistake, every time you don't know something, every time you struggle to understand a concept. But it will completely ignore your successes, your moments of brilliance, your ability to learn and grow. Most limiting beliefs fall into several categories. Beliefs about your capabilities. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not educated enough. Beliefs about your worthiness. I don't deserve success. I don't deserve love. I don't deserve happiness. I don't deserve abundance. Beliefs about reality. Money is the root of all evil. Success requires sacrifice. Life is supposed to be hard. You have to work yourself to death to get ahead. Beliefs about other people. Successful people are lucky. Rich people are greedy. People like me don't achieve big things. It's selfish to want more. These beliefs didn't originate with you. They were installed by other people who were themselves limited by their own beliefs. Your parents, teachers, friends, and society as a whole passed down their limitations like inherited genetic defects. But here's the powerful truth. What was learned can be unlearned. What was programmed can be reprogrammed. What was believed can be replaced with new, empowering beliefs that actually serve your highest potential. The process of breaking limiting beliefs requires you to become a detective in your own mind. You must learn to identify the thoughts and beliefs that are holding you back. One powerful technique is to pay attention to the language you use when talking about your goals and dreams. Do you find yourself saying things like, "I could never do that. That's not realistic for someone like me. I don't have what it takes. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't know the right people"? Each of these statements reveals a limiting belief that's operating in your unconscious mind. Once you've identified a limiting belief, you must question it relentlessly. Where did this belief come from? Is it actually true, or is it just something I learned from someone else? What evidence do I have that supports this belief? What evidence contradicts it? How has this belief served me? How has it limited me? What would be possible if I no longer believed this? What would I attempt if I knew I couldn't fail? The key to breaking limiting beliefs is to replace them with empowering beliefs that feel believable to you. You can't go from believing you're a complete failure to believing you're destined for greatness overnight. Your brain will reject beliefs that feel too far from your current reality. Instead, you must find bridge beliefs that feel true enough for your brain to accept. For example, if you currently believe I always fail at everything I try, you might start with a bridge belief like I'm learning to succeed more often than I fail, then progress to I have the ability to succeed at anything I commit to learning. The most powerful way to install new beliefs is through consistent mental rehearsal combined with emotional intensity. Your brain creates the strongest neural pathways when thoughts are combined with strong emotions. This is why traumatic experiences create such lasting impressions. But it's also why you can use positive emotions to accelerate the installation of empowering beliefs. When you visualize yourself succeeding, achieving your goals, living your dreams, and you feel the emotions of excitement, gratitude, and joy, you're literally rewiring your brain to believe that success is your natural state. Chapter 4. The Power of Focused Attention. Where attention goes, energy flows, and results show. This might be the most important principle you'll ever learn about controlling your mind and creating your reality. Your attention is like a magnifying glass that can focus the scattered rays of sunlight into a powerful beam capable of starting a fire. When your attention is scattered, your mental energy is weak and ineffective. But when you learn to focus your attention with laser-like precision, you become capable of achieving things that seem impossible to others. Most people have no control over their attention whatsoever. They're like leaves blowing in the wind, constantly distracted by whatever captures their notice at any given moment. Their phones buzz, and their attention immediately shifts to social media. They hear a negative news story, and their attention fixates on everything that's wrong with the world. Someone criticizes them, and their attention becomes consumed with self-doubt and worry. They're essentially giving away their most precious resource to anyone and anything that demands it. But your attention is not just something that happens to you. It's something you can learn to direct and control with incredible precision. When you master your attention, you master your mind. When you master your mind, you master your reality. This isn't mystical thinking. It's based on solid neuroscience. Your brain literally changes based on what you consistently focus your attention on. Neuroscientist Dr. Rick Hansen discovered that your brain has what he calls a negativity bias. Your brain is naturally wired to notice, focus on, and remember negative experiences more intensely than positive ones. This was useful for survival when humans were living in dangerous environments, but in today's world, it's causing most people to create lives dominated by stress, anxiety, and limitation. Your brain will naturally focus on problems, threats, and everything that's wrong unless you consciously direct it to focus on opportunities, possibilities, and everything that's right. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions your attention focuses on. If you're constantly asking yourself questions like, why does this always happen to me? Why am I such a failure? Why can't I ever catch a break? Then your brain will focus its attention on finding evidence to support these negative assumptions. But if you train yourself to ask empowering questions like, how can I turn this situation to my advantage? What can I learn from this experience? What opportunity is hidden in this challenge? Then your brain will focus its attention on finding solutions, possibilities, and growth opportunities. One of the most powerful attention training exercises you can practice is called selective attention meditation. Choose one object in your environment, perhaps a candle flame, a spot on the wall, or even your own breath. For 10 minutes, focus all of your attention on this single point of focus. Every time your mind wanders, which it will constantly in the beginning, gently bring your attention back to your chosen focus point. This is like doing push-ups for your attention muscle. The more you practice, the stronger your ability to direct and control your attention becomes. But focused attention isn't just about meditation. It's about learning to direct your mental energy toward what you want to create rather than what you want to avoid. Most people focus obsessively on their problems, their limitations, their fears, and their past failures. Then they wonder why these things seem to dominate their reality. What you focus on expands. When you focus on problems, problems multiply. When you focus on possibilities, possibilities multiply. The practice of focused attention requires you to become extremely selective about what you allow into your mental space. You must become a gatekeeper of your own mind, consciously choosing what thoughts to entertain, what information to consume, what conversations to engage in, and what experiences to focus on. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or avoiding all negative information. It means being strategic about where you invest your precious mental energy. One of the most transformative attention practices is called positive focus training. Every day, deliberately seek out 3 things that are going well in your life, 3 things you're grateful for, and 3 possibilities or opportunities that exist in your current situation. Write them down and really focus on them. Feel the emotions associated with these positive aspects of your reality. Your brain will begin to automatically notice more positive aspects because you're training it to look for them. Another powerful technique is future-focused visualization. Instead of letting your attention drift randomly into worries about the future, take control and deliberately direct your attention toward the future you're creating. Spend time each day visualizing your goals as already achieved, feeling the emotions of success, and focusing on all the details of your ideal life. When you consistently focus your attention on the reality you want to create, your brain begins to notice opportunities and possibilities that align with that vision. The ultimate goal of attention training is to develop what psychologists call cognitive flexibility. This is the ability to consciously shift your attention between different aspects of your experience depending on what serves you best in any given moment. When facing a challenge, you can choose to focus on the solution rather than the problem. When experiencing a setback, you can choose to focus on the lesson rather than the loss. When dealing with difficult people, you can choose to focus on understanding rather than judgment. Chapter 5. Emotional Mastery and Mental Strength. Your emotions are not happening to you. They're being created by you. This might be the most liberating realization you'll ever have, and simultaneously the most challenging to accept. For most people, emotions feel completely automatic and beyond their control. They believe they're victims of their emotional states, tossed around by feelings of anger, fear, sadness, and anxiety like ships in a storm. But the truth is that your emotions are the direct result of your thoughts, your focus, and your interpretation of events. Every emotion you experience begins with a thought. That thought triggers a cascade of biochemical reactions in your body, releasing hormones and neurotransmitters that create the physical sensations you associate with different emotions. The thought "I'm in danger" triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, creating the physical experience of fear. The thought "this is unfair" triggers different chemical reactions, creating the experience of anger. The thought "I'm not good enough" triggers yet another set of biochemical responses, creating the experience of shame or inadequacy. But here's what changes everything. You have the power to choose your thoughts. And when you change your thoughts, you automatically change your emotions. This doesn't mean suppressing negative emotions or pretending everything is perfect when it's not. It means understanding that you have far more control over your emotional state than you've been taught to believe. Most people are completely unconscious of their emotional patterns. They react automatically to situations based on emotional programs that were installed in childhood. Someone criticizes their work, and they automatically feel defensive and angry. They face a new challenge, and they automatically feel anxious and overwhelmed. They compare themselves to others, and they automatically feel inadequate and jealous. These emotional reactions feel so automatic that they assume they're just part of their personality, unchangeable aspects of who they are. But emotional mastery is possible. It begins with developing emotional awareness. You must learn to observe your emotions as they arise, rather than being completely consumed by them. When you feel anger building, instead of immediately reacting, you pause and notice, "I'm feeling anger right now. This is what anger feels like in my body. What thought triggered this emotion? What interpretation of this situation created this feeling?" This simple act of observation creates space between you and your emotion, giving you the power to choose your response rather than react automatically. The next level of emotional mastery is learning to reframe situations in ways that generate more empowering emotions. Every situation can be interpreted in multiple ways, and each interpretation will generate different emotional responses. If someone cuts you off in traffic, you can interpret it as they're being disrespectful and selfish, which will generate anger. Or you can interpret it as they must be in a hurry. Maybe they have an emergency, which will generate understanding or even compassion. Or you can interpret it as this is a great opportunity to practice patience and emotional control, which will generate a sense of empowerment. One of the most powerful emotional mastery techniques is called the emotional reset. When you notice yourself in a negative emotional state, you immediately stop what you're doing and ask yourself, what do I need to think or focus on right now to feel the way I want to feel? Then you consciously choose thoughts and mental images that generate more positive emotions. You might think about someone you love, recall a recent success, visualize achieving a goal, or simply focus on something you're grateful for. Physical posture and breathing also have tremendous influence over your emotional state. Your emotions are not just mental phenomena, they're embodied experiences. When you're depressed, your shoulders slump, your breathing becomes shallow, and your movements become slow and lethargic. But this relationship works both ways. When you consciously change your physiology, you can instantly change your emotional state. Stand up straight, pull your shoulders back, breathe deeply, and smile, and you'll immediately feel more confident and positive. The practice of emotional regulation requires you to become skilled at managing your biochemistry. Every emotion creates specific chemical changes in your body, and these chemicals can linger for hours or even days if you don't know how to process them effectively. Intense physical exercise is one of the fastest ways to metabolize stress hormones and reset your emotional state. Deep breathing exercises activate your parasympathetic nervous system, triggering relaxation responses that counteract anxiety and fear. But perhaps the most important aspect of emotional mastery is learning to use your emotions as information rather than allowing them to control your behavior. Emotions are like dashboard warning lights in your car. They're providing you with information about your thoughts, your needs, and your current state of mind. When you feel anxious, that's information that you're focusing on potential threats or problems. When you feel angry, that's information that something doesn't align with your values or expectations. When you feel excited, that's information that you're focusing on possibilities and opportunities. The goal isn't to eliminate negative emotions entirely. That's neither possible nor desirable. Negative emotions serve important functions. Fear can protect you from real dangers. Anger can motivate you to change unjust situations. Sadness can help you process loss and connect with others. The goal is to experience emotions fully while maintaining your ability to think clearly and choose your responses wisely. True emotional strength isn't about being tough or suppressing your feelings. It's about being able to feel whatever you're feeling without being controlled by those feelings. It's about maintaining your center in the storm, staying connected to your values and goals regardless of temporary emotional turbulence. When you develop this kind of emotional mastery, you become truly unstoppable, because external circumstances lose their power to derail you from your chosen path. Chapter 6. The Art of Mental Visualization. Your mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This isn't just motivational speaking. It's neuroscientific fact. When you visualize yourself performing an action, your brain fires the exact same neural pathways as when you actually perform that action. The motor cortex, the visual cortex, the emotional centers, they all activate as if the experience were real. This is why Olympic athletes spend hours mentally rehearsing their performances, why surgeons visualize complex procedures before entering the operating room, and why the most successful people in every field use visualization as a cornerstone of their mental training. But most people completely misunderstand visualization. They think it's about daydreaming or wishful thinking. They close their eyes, create a vague mental image of their goal, and wonder why nothing changes. Real visualization is a precise, systematic mental skill that requires training, focus, and specific techniques. When done correctly, visualization literally rewires your brain for success by creating neural pathways that make your desired outcomes feel familiar, natural, and inevitable. The power of visualization lies in its ability to program your unconscious mind with new patterns of success. Remember, your unconscious mind is responsible for 95% of your daily behaviors. It's constantly scanning your environment for opportunities and threats based on the patterns it recognizes. When you consistently visualize yourself succeeding in specific scenarios, you're teaching your unconscious mind to recognize and move toward those opportunities in real life. Effective visualization requires all 5 senses, not just visual imagery. Most people try to visualize by creating mental pictures, but the brain responds much more powerfully when you engage every sensory channel. When visualizing your ideal future, you need to see the specific details of your environment. Hear the sounds around you. Feel the physical sensations in your body. Even smell and taste elements of your success. The more sensory channels you engage, the more real the experience becomes to your brain. One of the most powerful visualization techniques is called future memory creation. Instead of visualizing your goals as something you hope to achieve in the future, you visualize them as memories of experiences you've already had. You imagine looking back on your success from a point in the future, remembering how it felt to achieve your goals, how you overcame the challenges, how proud and grateful you felt. This technique tricks your brain into believing that success is not just possible but inevitable, because it feels like it's already happened. The timing and emotional intensity of your visualization sessions are crucial for maximum effectiveness. Your brain is most receptive to new programming during theta brainwave states, which occur naturally when you're deeply relaxed, just before falling asleep, or immediately upon waking. During these windows, your conscious mind is less active, allowing your visualizations to bypass mental resistance and install directly into your unconscious programming. But visualization alone is not enough. You must combine your mental rehearsals with strong, positive emotions. Emotion is the glue that makes neural pathways stick. When you visualize your success while feeling genuine excitement, gratitude, joy, and confidence, you create much stronger neural connections than if you visualize with a neutral emotional state. Your brain literally releases the same neurochemicals during vivid positive visualization as it would during actual positive experiences. The most advanced visualization practitioners use a technique called holographic visualization. Instead of creating linear mental movies, they create three-dimensional mental environments that they can explore from multiple angles and perspectives. They might visualize their ideal day from the moment they wake up, experiencing every detail as if they're living it right now. They see themselves making confident decisions, handling challenges with ease, interacting successfully with others, and feeling deeply fulfilled by their achievements. One critical aspect that most people miss is visualizing the process, not just the outcome. While it's important to see yourself having achieved your goals, it's equally important to mentally rehearse the daily actions, habits, and decisions that lead to those outcomes. Visualize yourself making difficult choices with ease, staying disciplined when motivation is low, bouncing back quickly from setbacks, and consistently taking the actions that successful people take. Mental rehearsal can also be used to prepare for specific, challenging situations. If you have an important presentation, job interview, difficult conversation, or performance coming up, you can use visualization to mentally practice every aspect of that experience. See yourself walking into the room with confidence, feeling calm and prepared, delivering your message clearly and powerfully, handling unexpected questions with grace, and achieving the outcome you desire. By the time you face the real situation, your brain will recognize it as familiar territory. The key to making visualization work is consistency and specificity. Vague, occasional mental images have little impact on your neural programming. But 15 to 20 minutes of detailed, emotionally charged visualization every day for several weeks will create measurable changes in your brain structure and dramatically increase your probability of success. You're literally training your mind The same way an athlete trains their body, through consistent, focused repetition of the skills and experiences you want to master. Chapter 7. Breaking Free from Mental Habits. Your life is essentially the sum total of your habits. Every single thing you do automatically, without conscious thought, is shaping your reality moment by moment, day by day. The way you wake up in the morning, how you respond to stress, what you focus on when your mind wanders, how you interpret setbacks, the words you use when talking to yourself. These habitual patterns are literally creating the life you're living right now. Most people are completely unconscious of their mental habits. They think habits are just physical behaviors, like brushing teeth or exercising. But your most powerful habits are mental. The habit of focusing on problems instead of solutions. The habit of interpreting challenges as threats instead of opportunities. The habit of rehearsing worst-case scenarios instead of best-case outcomes. The habit of comparing yourself to others instead of focusing on your own progress. These mental habits are running automatically in the background of your mind, creating your emotional state, your energy level, and ultimately your results. The neuroscience of habit formation reveals why changing ingrained patterns feels so difficult. Every habit exists as a neurological loop consisting of 3 parts. A cue that triggers the habit, the routine or behavior itself, and the reward that reinforces the pattern. Your brain loves habits because they conserve mental energy. Once a pattern becomes automatic, your brain can perform it without conscious effort, freeing up cognitive resources for other tasks. But here's the crucial insight. You can hack your own habit loops by identifying the cues and rewards, then consciously installing new routines. Let's say you have a mental habit of catastrophic thinking whenever you face uncertainty. The cue might be any situation where you don't know what's going to happen. The routine is imagining all the things that could go wrong. The reward is the illusion of being prepared for danger, even though this mental habit actually makes you less capable of handling challenges effectively. To change this pattern, you keep the same cue and reward, but install a new routine. When you notice uncertainty triggering your catastrophic thinking, you consciously choose to visualize positive outcomes instead. You ask yourself empowering questions like, what's the best thing that could happen here? How might this situation work out even better than I expect? What opportunities might be hidden in this challenge? You still get the reward of feeling prepared, but now you're programming your mind for success instead of failure. The most powerful mental habit you can develop is the habit of conscious choice. Most people react automatically to their thoughts and emotions, but you can train yourself to pause between stimulus and response. When a limiting thought arises, instead of automatically believing it or being controlled by it, you pause and ask, is this thought helpful? Is it true? What would be a more empowering way to think about this situation? This simple pause creates the space for you to choose your response instead of reacting automatically. One of the most transformative mental habits is the habit of reframing. Every situation that occurs in your life is neutral until you assign meaning to it. The meaning you assign determines your emotional response, your energy level, and your actions. You can develop the automatic habit of looking for empowering interpretations of every experience. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of automatically thinking this is a disaster, you can train yourself to automatically think, how can I use this? What is this teaching me? How might this redirect me towards something even better? The morning mental routine is perhaps the most important habit you can establish because it sets the tone for your entire day. Most people wake up and immediately check their phones, flooding their minds with other people's agendas, problems, and mental energy. But you can create a morning routine that programs your mind for success from the moment you wake up. Spend the first 15 minutes of your day in gratitude, visualizing your goals, setting intentions for how you want to feel and what you want to accomplish. Breaking negative mental habits requires what psychologists call pattern interruption. The moment you catch yourself engaging in a disempowering mental pattern, you must do something completely different to break the neural loop. Some people use physical movement, jumping up and down or doing push-ups. Others use verbal interruptions, saying "stop" or "cancel that" out loud. The key is to interrupt the pattern before it gains momentum and becomes a full-blown emotional spiral. The habit of mental hygiene is just as important as physical hygiene. But most people never think about it. Just as you wouldn't go days without showering, you shouldn't go days without cleaning your mental space. This means regularly examining your thoughts, questioning beliefs that aren't serving you, and consciously choosing what information and influences you allow into your mind. You become extremely selective about what you read, watch, listen to, and discuss, because you understand that everything you expose your mind to is programming your unconscious. One of the most powerful habits for mental mastery is the end-of-day review. Before going to sleep, spend 5 minutes reflecting on your mental performance throughout the day. What thoughts served you well? Which mental patterns held you back? What emotional reactions were you proud of? What would you handle differently next time? This habit of self-reflection accelerates your mental development because you're constantly learning from your experiences instead of just repeating them unconsciously. The ultimate goal is to develop what neuroscientists call cognitive flexibility, the ability to consciously shift between different mental strategies depending on what the situation requires. Instead of being stuck in one way of thinking, you develop a toolkit of mental habits that you can access at will. When facing a problem, you can shift into analytical thinking mode. When feeling stressed, you can shift into calming and centering mode. When pursuing a goal, you can shift into focused action mode. This mental agility is what separates peak performers from everyone else. Chapter 8. Building Unshakable Mental Resilience. Mental resilience is not about being tough or suppressing your emotions. It's about developing the ability to maintain your center, your clarity, and your forward momentum, regardless of what life throws at you. Resilient people don't experience fewer setbacks than others. They simply recover faster and use challenges as fuel for growth rather than reasons to give up. The foundation of mental resilience lies in understanding that you are not your circumstances. Your external situation is simply data, information about what's happening around you. But your internal state, your peace of mind, your sense of purpose, your confidence in your ability to handle whatever comes, that's completely under your control. When you truly internalize this distinction, you become virtually unbreakable because nothing outside of you has the power to defeat you. Resilience is built through what psychologists call stress inoculation. Just like your immune system becomes stronger when exposed to manageable doses of pathogens, your mind becomes stronger when exposed to manageable challenges. Every time you face a difficulty and work through it successfully, you build evidence that you're capable of handling adversity. Your brain literally rewires itself to associate challenges with growth opportunities rather than threats to your well-being. One of the most powerful resilience-building practices is called cognitive reappraisal. This is the ability to consciously reinterpret challenging situations in ways that serve your mental strength rather than undermining it. When facing a setback, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "How is this happening for me?" Instead of seeing obstacles as evidence that you should give up, you see them as evidence that you're pushing beyond your comfort zone into growth territory. The most resilient people have developed what researchers call an internal locus of control. They believe that their actions, decisions, and responses have far more influence over their outcomes than external circumstances or luck. When things go well, they take responsibility for the actions that created that success. When things go poorly, they take responsibility for what they can learn and how they can improve, rather than blaming external factors they can't control. Mental resilience requires developing emotional regulation skills that allow you to experience strong emotions without being overwhelmed or controlled by them. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally numb or suppressing your feelings. It means learning to feel whatever you're feeling fully while maintaining your ability to think clearly and make wise decisions. You can feel angry about an injustice while choosing to respond strategically rather than reactively. You can feel disappointed about a setback while immediately focusing on your next move forward. One of the most important resilience skills is called psychological flexibility. This is the ability to adapt your mental approach based on what the situation requires, rather than rigidly sticking to one way of thinking. Sometimes resilience means pushing through discomfort with determination and grit. Other times, it means accepting what you cannot change and redirecting your energy toward what you can control. The key is developing the wisdom to know which approach serves you best in any given moment. Resilient people have learned to separate their identity from their results. They understand that failing at something doesn't make them a failure, any more than succeeding at something makes them inherently superior to others. They define themselves by their values, their effort, their growth, and their contribution to others, not by external achievements or setbacks. This psychological separation protects their self-worth during difficult times and prevents success from creating arrogance or complacency. The practice of mental strength training is just as important as physical strength training. But most people never think to exercise their minds systematically. Mental strength training involves deliberately putting yourself in challenging situations where you can practice staying calm, focused, and solution-oriented under pressure. This might mean taking on projects that push your capabilities, having difficult conversations you've been avoiding, or facing fears that have been limiting your growth. One of the most powerful resilience tools is called the growth mindset, a concept developed by psychologist Carol Dweck. People with a growth mindset believe that their abilities, intelligence, and talents can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. When they face challenges, they see them as opportunities to become stronger and more capable. People with a fixed mindset believe their abilities are set in stone. So challenges feel like threats to their self-image rather than opportunities for development. Resilient people have also mastered the art of temporal perspective. They understand that all emotional states are temporary. that all challenges eventually pass, and that time has a way of putting things in perspective. When facing immediate difficulties, they consciously zoom out and imagine how they'll view the current situation 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years from now. This perspective helps them avoid making permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. The ultimate expression of mental resilience is post-traumatic growth, the ability to not just recover from adversity, but to become stronger, wiser, and more capable as a result of difficult experiences. Research shows that people who develop post-traumatic growth often emerge from challenges with greater self-confidence, deeper relationships, clearer priorities, and a stronger sense of what really matters in life. They learn to see their struggles not as evidence of weakness, but as proof of their strength and capacity for growth. Chapter 9. Overcoming fear and taking massive action. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is simply your brain's way of trying to protect you from perceived danger. The problem is that your ancient survival programming hasn't updated to distinguish between real physical threats and psychological challenges. Your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, responds to the possibility of public embarrassment, financial loss, or social rejection with the same neurochemical response it would trigger if you were facing a hungry predator. Understanding this biological reality is the first step toward developing a healthy relationship with fear. The biggest lie ever told about successful people is that they don't experience fear. Every person who has ever achieved anything significant has had to face fear, doubt, and uncertainty. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to take action despite fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's feeling fear and moving forward anyway. Most people try to wait until they feel ready, confident, and fear-free before taking action toward their goals. But confidence doesn't create action. Action creates confidence. Every time you do something that scares you and survive the experience, you build evidence that you're more capable than your fears suggested. Your brain literally rewires itself to associate challenge with growth rather than danger. This is why the most confident people are usually those who have faced the most fears and taken action despite uncertainty. Fear serves an important evolutionary function, but in modern life, it often prevents us from pursuing the very experiences that would make us happiest and most fulfilled. The things you're most afraid of are usually the things most worth doing. Fear is often a compass pointing toward your growth edge, toward the experiences that would expand your capabilities and transform your life. When you learn to interpret fear as excitement about your potential rather than evidence that you should retreat, everything changes. One of the most powerful fear-conquering techniques is called systematic desensitization. Instead of trying to overcome your biggest fears all at once, you gradually expose yourself to increasingly challenging versions of what you're afraid of. If you're terrified of public speaking, you might start by speaking up more in small group conversations. Then volunteer to give a toast at a family gathering. Then speak at a small community meeting, gradually building up to larger audiences. Each successful experience reduces the fear response and builds your confidence for the next level. The practice of worst-case scenario planning can actually reduce fear rather than increase it. Most fear is fear of the unknown. When you take time to specifically identify what you're afraid might happen and create concrete plans for how you would handle each scenario, the fear loses much of its power. You realize that even your worst-case scenarios are usually manageable, and having a plan makes you feel prepared rather than helpless. Many people are paralyzed by perfectionism, which is really just fear of failure disguised as high standards. They postpone taking action until they can guarantee a perfect outcome, which means they never take action at all. But perfection is not just impossible, it's counterproductive. Progress requires experimentation, learning from mistakes, and constant adjustment based on feedback. The goal is not to avoid all mistakes, but to make mistakes quickly, learn from them rapidly, and iterate towards success. Fear of judgment from others keeps more people stuck than almost any other factor. But the reality is that most people are far too busy worrying about their own lives to spend much time judging yours. And even if they do judge you, their opinions have absolutely no power over your actual outcomes unless you give them that power. The people whose opinions truly matter will respect you more for pursuing your dreams than for playing it safe to avoid criticism. One of the most liberating realizations you can have is that failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success. Every person you admire has failed far more often than they've succeeded. The difference is that they view failure as feedback, not as evidence that they should give up. They understand that failure is the price of entry for any worthwhile endeavor, not a sign that they're not cut out for success. The technique of future self-visualization can be incredibly powerful for overcoming fear and taking action. Imagine yourself 5 years from now, looking back on your current situation. What would your future self want you to do? What actions would they take? How would they handle the fears you're experiencing right now? What advice would they give you? This perspective helps you make decisions based on long-term fulfillment rather than short-term comfort. Taking massive action requires developing what psychologists call an action bias. Instead of overthinking, overanalyzing, and over-planning, you develop the habit of taking imperfect action quickly. You understand that taking action, even imperfect action, provides you with real-world feedback that no amount of thinking can replace. You can always course-correct along the way, but you can't steer a parked car. The ultimate key to overcoming fear is understanding that your comfort zone is not actually comfortable. Staying where you are, avoiding challenges, and playing it safe might feel comfortable in the short term, but it leads to long-term regret, unfulfillment, and the gnawing sense that you're not living up to your potential. The temporary discomfort of pushing through fear is nothing compared to the permanent discomfort of knowing you settled for less than you were capable of achieving. Chapter 10. Creating your reality through consistent practice. Everything we've discussed throughout this journey comes down to one fundamental truth. Consistent practice is the bridge between knowing and being, between understanding and mastery, between dreaming and achieving. You can have all the knowledge in the world about how your mind works, but without consistent practice of mental mastery techniques, nothing in your life will change. Knowledge without application is just entertainment. The transformation you're seeking doesn't happen overnight. Your current mental patterns, emotional reactions, and behavioral habits have been reinforced thousands of times over many years. They're deeply ingrained in your neural pathways, your biochemistry, and your unconscious programming. Expecting to change them with a few days or weeks of effort is like expecting to develop the physique of an Olympic athlete with a few workouts. Real change requires consistent, patient, persistent practice over time. But here's what's truly exciting. Every single day you practice mental mastery techniques, you're literally rewiring your brain. Every time you choose an empowering thought over a limiting one, you're strengthening neural pathways that serve your success. Every time you manage your emotional state consciously, instead of reacting automatically, you're building your emotional intelligence and resilience. Every time you focus your attention deliberately, instead of letting it wander randomly, you're developing your mental discipline and clarity. The compound effect applies to mental development just as powerfully as it applies to financial investment. Small, consistent improvements in your mental habits create exponential results over time. A 1% improvement in your mindset, focus, emotional regulation, or belief system every day leads to a 37 times improvement over the course of a year. Most people underestimate what they can achieve in a year and overestimate what they can achieve in a day. The key is focusing on consistency rather than intensity. Creating a sustainable daily practice requires what researchers call implementation intentions. Instead of vague goals like, "I want to think more positively," you create specific, measurable practices like, "Every morning at 7 a.m., I will spend 15 minutes visualizing my goals and feeling grateful for my progress." The more specific your implementation intentions, the more likely you are to follow through consistently, because your brain knows exactly what to do and when to do it. The most successful people in every field have morning rituals that set them up for mental success throughout the day. Your first hour awake is the most neurologically impressionable time of day. Your brain is transitioning from theta waves to beta waves, making it highly receptive to new programming. How you use this window determines whether you start your day feeling empowered and focused or reactive and scattered. A powerful morning practice might include gratitude reflection, goal visualization, intention setting, and positive affirmations. Tracking your mental practices is just as important as tracking your physical fitness or financial progress. What gets measured gets managed. Keep a simple journal where you record your daily mental training activities. Did you catch yourself engaging in limiting thoughts and choose more empowering ones? Did you manage your emotional state effectively during challenging situations? Did you maintain focus on your priorities despite distractions? This self-monitoring accelerates your progress by increasing your awareness of patterns and celebrating improvements. Environmental design plays a crucial role in supporting consistent mental practice. Your environment should support the mental habits you want to develop and eliminate triggers for the patterns you want to change. This might mean creating a dedicated space for visualization and meditation, removing apps that distract you from your goals, surrounding yourself with books and materials that reinforce positive thinking, or joining communities of people who are also committed to mental mastery. One of the biggest obstacles to consistent practice is the perfectionism trap. Many people start strong, miss a day or two, then abandon their practice entirely because they feel they've already failed. But consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means getting back on track quickly when you get off track. A professional athlete who misses one workout doesn't quit training forever. They simply show up for the next workout. Develop the same mindset about your mental training. The practice of mental rehearsal should become as automatic as physical hygiene. Every night before sleep, spend a few minutes reviewing your mental performance during the day. What thoughts, emotions, and reactions served you well? What patterns would you like to adjust tomorrow? How can you handle similar situations more skillfully in the future? Then visualize tomorrow going exactly as you want it to go. See yourself thinking clearly, feeling confident, responding wisely to challenges, and moving closer to your goals. As you develop consistency in your mental practices, you'll begin to notice that your external reality starts shifting to match your internal transformation. Opportunities that you previously wouldn't have noticed will start appearing. People will respond to you differently because you're showing up differently. Challenges that used to overwhelm you will feel manageable because you've developed the mental tools to handle them. This isn't magic or mystical thinking. It's the natural result of upgrading your mental programming. The ultimate goal of all mental mastery practices is to develop what researchers call self-directed neuroplasticity. This is the ability to consciously and deliberately rewire your own brain to support the life you want to create. You become the architect of your own mental programming, the director of your own thoughts and emotions, the creator of your own reality. This level of mental mastery doesn't happen overnight, but every day you practice, you move closer to becoming the person who naturally thinks, feels, and acts in ways that create the life you truly desire. Remember, your mind is your most powerful tool, but like any tool, its effectiveness depends on how skillfully you use it. The techniques you've learned are not just concepts to understand. They're skills to develop through consistent practice. Your future self is counting on you to do the work, to show up every day, to choose growth over comfort, action over hesitation, mastery over mediocrity. The person you're capable of becoming is waiting for you on the other side of consistent practice. The only question is, are you ready to become them? Chapter 11. Mastering your inner dialogue. The conversation you have with yourself every single day is the most important conversation you'll ever have. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there's a voice in your head commenting, analyzing, judging, comparing, predicting, and narrating your experience. This inner voice never stops talking. It's been with you since childhood, shaping your self-concept, your confidence, your decisions, and ultimately, your entire life experience. Yet most people never learn to consciously direct this internal conversation. Your inner dialogue is like having a permanent roommate in your head who never leaves and never stops talking. The question is, what kind of roommate do you have? Is your inner voice supportive, encouraging, and empowering? Or is it critical, doubtful, and constantly pointing out your flaws and limitations? For most people, unfortunately, their inner dialogue is dominated by what psychologists call the inner critic, a harsh internal voice that judges everything they do and constantly tells them they're not good enough. The inner critic develops during childhood as an internalized version of all the critical voices you heard from parents, teachers, peers, and society. Every time someone told you to be realistic, criticized your performance, compared you unfavorably to others, or expressed disappointment in your choices, that voice got recorded and integrated into your internal operating system. Now it plays on repeat, undermining your confidence, second-guessing your decisions, and keeping you stuck in patterns of self-doubt and limitation. But here's what changes everything. You are not that voice. You are the observer of that voice. You are the consciousness that can hear the inner dialogue and choose whether to believe it, ignore it, or replace it with something more empowering. This realization is the beginning of mental freedom. When you understand that you can observe your thoughts without being controlled by them, you reclaim your power to direct your mental experience. The first step in mastering your inner dialogue is developing what mindfulness practitioners call metacognition, the ability to think about your thinking. Start paying attention to the tone, content, and patterns of your inner voice throughout the day. Notice when it's supportive versus when it's critical. Observe how it responds to challenges, opportunities, mistakes, and successes. Most people are completely unconscious of their inner dialogue, letting it run on autopilot for their entire lives. One of the most powerful techniques for transforming your inner dialogue is called cognitive restructuring. This involves consciously examining your automatic thoughts and replacing them with more accurate, balanced, and empowering alternatives. When you catch your inner critic saying something like, "I always mess everything up," you pause and ask, "Is this actually true? Can I think of times when I've handled things well?" What would be a more accurate and helpful way to think about this situation? The practice of positive self-talk is not about lying to yourself or pretending everything is perfect. It's about becoming your own best coach and supporter instead of your own worst enemy. Imagine if you had a coach who constantly criticized you, focused on your weaknesses, predicted your failure, and reminded you of every mistake you'd ever made. You would fire that coach immediately. Yet most people allow their inner critic to treat them this way every single day. Effective self-talk follows specific principles that maximize its impact on your mental state and performance. First, it should be specific rather than general. Instead of saying, "I'm terrible at this," you might say, "I'm still learning this skill, and I'm getting better with practice." Second, it should focus on what you can control rather than what you can't. Instead of, "I hope this works out," you might say, "I'm going to give my best effort and handle whatever happens." Third, it should be present or future-focused rather than dwelling on past mistakes. One transformative technique is called the best friend method. Whenever you notice your inner critic being harsh or judgmental, ask yourself, "What would I say to my best friend if they were in this situation? How would I encourage and support someone I care about?" Then give yourself that same compassion and understanding. Most people are incredibly kind and supportive to others while being brutal to themselves. Learning to treat yourself with the same kindness you show others can revolutionize your self-relationship. The language you use in your inner dialogue literally shapes your neurology and your experience. Words have power because they trigger specific neurochemical responses in your brain. When you tell yourself, "I have to do this," you create stress and resistance. When you tell yourself, "I get to do this," you create gratitude and enthusiasm. When you say, "This is impossible," you prime your brain to look for evidence of why it won't work. When you say, "This is challenging, but I can figure it out," you prime your brain to look for solutions and possibilities. Another powerful practice is developing what psychologists call self-compassionate self-talk. This involves treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and encouragement that you would offer a good friend going through a difficult time. When you make a mistake, instead of berating yourself, you acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes, that this is part of being human, and that you can learn from this experience and do better next time. The technique of reframing is particularly powerful for transforming inner dialogue. Every situation can be interpreted in multiple ways, and the interpretation you choose determines your emotional response and your actions. If you lose a job, your inner critic might say, "I'm a failure. I'll never find anything good again." But you could reframe this as, "This is an opportunity to find something even better, suited to my talents and goals. This happened for a reason, and something amazing is coming." Creating empowering mantras and affirmations can help reprogram your default self-talk patterns. These should be personally meaningful statements that contradict your specific limiting beliefs and reinforce the identity and mindset you want to develop. Instead of generic affirmations, create specific statements like, "I am becoming more confident and capable every day," or "I trust my ability to handle whatever challenges come my way," or "I deserve success and happiness as much as anyone else." The practice of inner dialogue journaling can accelerate your awareness and transformation of self-talk patterns. Each evening, write down examples of your inner dialogue from that day. What did your inner voice say during challenging moments? How did it respond to successes and setbacks? What patterns do you notice? What alternative self-talk would have served you better? This practice increases your consciousness of automatic thought patterns and helps you design more empowering internal conversations. Advanced practitioners develop what could be called an inner council of advisors. Instead of just one inner voice, they consciously cultivate different internal perspectives they can access, depending on what they need. They might have an inner coach for motivation and encouragement, an inner strategist for problem solving, an inner wise elder for perspective and patience, and an inner cheerleader for celebration and confidence. This allows them to always have access to the kind of internal support that serves their highest good. The ultimate goal of mastering your inner dialogue is to become your own greatest ally instead of your own worst enemy. When your internal conversation is consistently supportive, encouraging, solution-focused, and empowering, you become unstoppable. You develop unshakable self-confidence because your inner voice constantly reinforces your capabilities and potential. You recover quickly from setbacks because your self-talk helps you learn and grow rather than dwelling on failures. You take more risks and pursue bigger goals because your inner dialogue supports your dreams rather than talking you out of them. Chapter 12. Optimizing mental energy and peak performance. Mental energy is just as real and important as physical energy. Yet most people have no understanding of how to manage, conserve, or optimize it. Your brain consumes approximately 20% of your total daily energy, even though it represents only about 2% of your body weight. Every decision you make, every problem you solve, every emotion you regulate, every distraction you resist, depletes your mental energy reserves. Understanding how to maximize your mental energy is the key to sustained high performance in every area of your life. Most people operate in a constant state of mental fatigue without even realizing it. They wake up tired, struggle to focus throughout the day, feel drained by simple decisions, and collapse into mindless activities in the evening. They assume this is just how life is supposed to feel, never recognizing that mental exhaustion is largely preventable through proper mental energy management. The concept of decision fatigue reveals why so many high-achieving people seem to lose their willpower as the day progresses. Every choice you make, from what to wear, to what to eat, to how to respond to emails, uses up finite mental resources. This is why successful people like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg famously wore the same outfit every day. They understood that preserving mental energy for important decisions requires eliminating unnecessary choices wherever possible. Your brain operates in different states throughout the day, each optimized for different types of mental work. Understanding these natural rhythms allows you to schedule your most important cognitive tasks during your peak mental energy windows. For most people, complex analytical thinking is best performed during the first few hours after waking, when mental energy is highest. Creative tasks often flow better during slightly lower energy states, when the mind is more relaxed and associative. The practice of deep work, as defined by researcher Cal Newport, is the ability to focus on cognitively demanding tasks for extended periods without distraction. This skill is becoming increasingly rare in our hyper-connected world, but it's also becoming increasingly valuable. Deep work produces disproportionate results because it allows you to create at your highest level, solve complex problems, and produce work that can't be replicated by artificial intelligence or automation. Creating the optimal environment for peak mental performance requires eliminating what researchers call attention residue. Every time you switch between tasks, part of your attention remains stuck on the previous task, reducing your cognitive capacity for the current one. This is why multitasking is actually a myth. Your brain doesn't multitask. It rapidly switches between tasks, and each switch comes with an efficiency cost. True mental optimization requires single tasking, with complete focus. The concept of cognitive load theory explains why some mental work feels effortless while other work feels exhausting. Your working memory can only hold a limited amount of information at one time. When you try to process too much information simultaneously, your cognitive system becomes overloaded and performance degrades rapidly. Managing cognitive load means breaking complex tasks into smaller components and organizing information in ways that don't overwhelm your mental processing capacity. Nutrition plays a crucial role in mental energy optimization that most people completely underestimate. Your brain runs primarily on glucose, but the quality and timing of that glucose delivery dramatically affects cognitive performance. Stable blood sugar levels support sustained mental energy, while blood sugar spikes and crashes create corresponding energy and focus fluctuations. Eating foods with a low glycemic index and consuming regular, balanced meals helps maintain consistent mental energy throughout the day. The relationship between physical exercise and mental performance is profound and scientifically well documented. Exercise increases the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which stimulates the growth of new neural connections and improves cognitive function. Even short bursts of physical activity can immediately enhance mental clarity, creativity, and focus. Many of history's greatest thinkers, from Aristotle to Einstein, were known for taking regular walks to stimulate their mental processes. Sleep quality is perhaps the most undervalued factor in mental energy optimization. During sleep, your brain clears metabolic waste, consolidates memories, and restores cognitive resources. Even small sleep deficits accumulate over time, creating significant impairments in attention, decision-making, emotional regulation, and creative thinking. Prioritizing sleep quality and duration is not about being lazy. It's about maximizing your mental performance capacity. The practice of mental recovery is just as important as mental exertion for sustaining high performance over time. Just as athletes incorporate rest and recovery into their training regimens, peak mental performers build deliberate recovery periods into their schedules. This might include meditation, nature walks, mindless activities that allow the mind to wander, or complete disconnection from information and stimulation. Attention management is more important than time management in today's information-rich environment. You can have all the time in the world, but if your attention is scattered, fragmented, and constantly hijacked by distractions, you won't accomplish anything meaningful. Developing the ability to control your attention deliberately, maintain focus for extended periods, and quickly redirect your mental energy when necessary is the ultimate productivity skill. The phenomenon of flow states represents the peak of human mental performance. Flow occurs when you're completely absorbed in a challenging activity that matches your skill level, when self-consciousness disappears, and when you perform at levels that surprise even yourself. While flow can't be forced, you can create conditions that make it more likely to occur. Clear goals, immediate feedback, elimination of distractions, and tasks that stretch your abilities without overwhelming them. Technology can either enhance or destroy mental energy depending on how it's used. Digital devices and applications can serve as cognitive tools that augment your mental capabilities, but they can also become sources of constant distraction and mental fragmentation. Developing digital wisdom means learning to use technology intentionally to support your cognitive goals, rather than letting it hijack your attention and deplete your mental resources. The concept of energy management extends beyond just mental energy to include emotional, physical, and spiritual energy. These different energy systems are interconnected and affect each other. Emotional turbulence drains mental energy. Physical fatigue impairs cognitive function. Lack of purpose and meaning creates spiritual exhaustion that undermines all other forms of energy. Peak performers understand that optimizing mental energy requires a holistic approach to energy management. Mental energy audit is a practice where you track your energy levels throughout the day to identify patterns and optimize your schedule accordingly. Notice when you feel most alert and focused versus when you feel sluggish and scattered. Pay attention to which activities energize you versus which ones drain you. Which environments support your best thinking? Which types of decisions feel effortless versus which ones feel exhausting? This data allows you to design a life that works with your natural energy patterns rather than against them. The ultimate goal of mental energy optimization is not just to accomplish more, but to accomplish what matters most while feeling energized and engaged, rather than drained and depleted. When you master your mental energy, work feels less like work and more like play. You approach challenges with enthusiasm rather than dread. You maintain high performance consistently rather than experiencing constant energy crashes. You have mental resources available for creativity, relationships, and personal growth rather than feeling like you're always running on empty. Chapter 13. Developing unshakable mental clarity. Mental clarity is the foundation of all effective decision-making, problem-solving, and action-taking. When your mind is clear, you can see situations accurately, evaluate options objectively, and choose responses that align with your values and long-term goals. When your mind is cloudy, confused, or overwhelmed, even simple decisions become difficult, and you're likely to make choices you'll later regret. Most people live in a constant state of mental fog without realizing it. Their minds are cluttered with worry about the future, regret about the past, information overload, conflicting priorities, and emotional turbulence. This mental static makes it nearly impossible to think clearly. see opportunities, or access their intuitive wisdom. They're like someone trying to navigate through a storm with a dirty windshield, struggling to see clearly enough to make good decisions. Mental clarity begins with what Buddhist teachers call beginner's mind. The ability to approach situations with fresh eyes, free from preconceived notions, past conditioning, and automatic assumptions. Most of the time, you don't see reality directly. You see your interpretation of reality, filtered through your beliefs, expectations, fears, and past experiences. Beginner's mind allows you to see what's actually happening, rather than what you think should be happening based on your mental programming. One of the biggest obstacles to mental clarity is what psychologists call cognitive overload. Your conscious mind can only process a limited amount of information at any given time. When you try to think about too many things simultaneously, your cognitive system becomes overwhelmed and your thinking becomes muddled and ineffective. Mental clarity requires learning to focus on one thing at a time with complete attention. The practice of mental decluttering is essential for developing clarity. Just as physical clutter makes it difficult to find what you need in your environment, mental clutter makes it difficult to access your best thinking and decision-making capabilities. Mental decluttering involves regularly clearing your mind of unnecessary thoughts, worries, and information that don't serve your current priorities and goals. Emotional clarity is a crucial component of overall mental clarity. Strong emotions can cloud judgment and make it difficult to think rationally. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions, but rather learning to feel your emotions fully while maintaining your ability to think clearly. When you're angry, you can acknowledge the anger without letting it control your decisions. When you're afraid, you can feel the fear without letting it paralyze you into inaction. The technique of perspective-taking dramatically enhances mental clarity by allowing you to see situations from multiple viewpoints. When you're stuck in one perspective, you can only see a limited range of options and solutions. But when you consciously shift perspectives, you often discover possibilities that weren't visible from your original vantage point. You might consider how the situation looks from another person's perspective, how you'll view it a year from now, or how someone you admire would approach it. Questions are one of the most powerful tools for developing mental clarity. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Poor questions generate poor answers and keep you stuck in confusion and limitation. Powerful questions cut through mental fog and direct your attention toward useful information and productive solutions. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" you might ask, "What can I learn from this situation?" Or, "How can I use this experience to become stronger and wiser?" The practice of meditation is perhaps the most reliable method for developing sustained mental clarity. Meditation teaches you to observe your thoughts without being caught up in them, to notice when your mind becomes agitated or confused, and to return to a state of centered awareness. Regular meditation practice literally changes your brain structure, strengthening areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility, while reducing activity in areas associated with anxiety and mental chatter. Mental clarity requires learning to distinguish between facts and interpretations. Most of the time, what you think are facts are actually your interpretations of what happened, filtered through your beliefs, assumptions, and emotional state. Learning to separate what actually occurred from your story about what occurred is crucial for making decisions based on reality rather than fiction. This skill becomes particularly important during conflicts, setbacks, and challenging situations where emotional reactions can distort perception. The concept of single tasking is essential for mental clarity in our multitasking world. When you try to do multiple things at once, your attention becomes fragmented and your thinking becomes shallow and ineffective. True mental clarity requires the ability to focus completely on one thing at a time, giving it your full attention until it's completed or you consciously choose to move to something else. Physical organization supports mental clarity in ways that most people underestimate. When your physical environment is cluttered and disorganized, your mind tends to mirror that chaos. Creating clean, organized spaces for important work helps your mind operate more clearly and efficiently. This is why many successful people maintain minimalist work environments with only the essential items needed for the task at hand. The practice of regular reflection enhances mental clarity by helping you process experiences, extract lessons, and integrate new understanding. Without reflection, experiences simply accumulate without contributing to wisdom or growth. Setting aside time each day or week to think deeply about your experiences, decisions, and learnings helps you develop increasingly clear understanding of yourself, others, and life in general. Information diet is crucial for maintaining mental clarity in our information-rich world. Just as eating too much junk food clouds your physical energy, consuming too much low-quality information clouds your mental energy. Developing the discipline to be highly selective about what information you consume, what news you follow, what social media you engage with, and what entertainment you choose directly impacts your mental clarity and cognitive function. The ability to say no is fundamental to mental clarity. Every yes to one thing is a no to something else. When you say yes to too many commitments, projects, and distractions, your mental energy becomes scattered and your thinking becomes unclear. Learning to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great opportunities is essential for maintaining the mental clarity needed for high-level performance and decision-making. Mental clarity also requires what researchers call cognitive flexibility, the ability to switch between different thinking modes depending on what the situation requires. Sometimes clarity comes from analytical thinking, breaking problems down into components and examining them systematically. Other times, clarity comes from intuitive thinking, stepping back and allowing insights to emerge naturally. Developing both modes and knowing when to use each one maximizes your ability to see clearly in any situation. The ultimate benefit of mental clarity is the confidence that comes from knowing you can trust your own thinking and decision-making. When your mind is clear, you don't second-guess yourself constantly or get paralyzed by uncertainty. You can evaluate situations accurately, consider options thoughtfully, and make decisions confidently, knowing that even if the outcome isn't what you hoped for, you made the best choice possible with the information available at the time. Chapter 14. Sustaining Mental Mastery Through Life's Challenges. Mental mastery isn't a destination you reach and then maintain effortlessly for the rest of your life. It's an ongoing practice that must be maintained and strengthened continuously, especially when life presents its inevitable challenges, setbacks, and unexpected difficulties. The true test of your mental training isn't how well you perform when everything is going smoothly, but how quickly you can return to your center when life knocks you off balance. Life has a way of testing every skill you develop, and mental mastery is no exception. Just when you think you've mastered your thoughts and emotions, You'll face a situation that challenges every technique you've learned. You might lose a job you thought was secure, experience a relationship breakdown, face a health scare, or encounter a financial crisis. These moments don't indicate failure in your mental training. They're opportunities to deepen and strengthen your mental mastery through real-world application. One of the most important principles for sustaining mental mastery is what psychologists call stress inoculation. Just as vaccines expose your immune system to small amounts of pathogens to build resistance against larger threats, deliberately exposing yourself to manageable challenges builds mental resilience for bigger difficulties. This doesn't mean seeking out unnecessary drama or hardship, but rather not avoiding every uncomfortable situation and viewing challenges as opportunities to strengthen your mental skills. The concept of mental maintenance is crucial for long-term mastery. Just as physical fitness requires ongoing exercise to maintain strength and conditioning, mental fitness requires ongoing practice to maintain clarity, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility. You can't master your mind once and then neglect it, expecting it to remain strong. Mental skills deteriorate without regular use, and old patterns can resurface during times of stress if you're not maintaining your practices. During crisis periods, your brain naturally defaults to your most ingrained patterns and habits. This is why people often revert to old behaviors during stressful times, even after years of personal development work. Understanding this tendency allows you to prepare for it by reinforcing your mental practices before you need them most. The time to strengthen your mental foundation is not during the storm, but before the storm arrives. The practice of proactive mental training involves regularly putting yourself in situations that require you to use your mental mastery skills. This might mean taking on challenging projects that push your comfort zone, having difficult conversations you've been avoiding, or setting goals that require sustained focus and persistence. By voluntarily engaging with challenges while you're mentally strong, you build the confidence and competence to handle involuntary challenges when they arise. Developing what researchers call psychological antifragility is the ultimate goal of sustained mental mastery. Antifragile systems don't just survive stress and volatility, they actually become stronger because of it. Psychologically antifragile people use setbacks as opportunities for growth, transform obstacles into advantages, and emerge from difficulties more capable and resilient than before. They've learned to extract value from every experience, even the painful ones. The support system you build around your mental mastery practice is crucial for long-term sustainability. Surrounding yourself with people who understand and support your commitment to mental growth makes it much easier to maintain your practices during difficult times. This might include mentors who can provide guidance, peers who are on similar journeys, or professional support when needed. Isolation makes it much harder to maintain mental mastery during challenging periods. Regular mental inventory is a practice that helps you monitor your mental state and catch potential problems before they become serious. This involves regularly assessing your thought patterns, emotional regulation, stress levels, and overall mental well-being. Are you maintaining your empowering beliefs or slipping back into limiting ones? Are you managing your emotions effectively or getting overwhelmed more easily? Are you maintaining mental clarity or feeling increasingly confused and scattered? This self-awareness allows you to adjust your practices before small issues become big problems. The concept of seasonal mental training recognizes that different life seasons require different mental strategies. The mental skills needed during periods of rapid growth and expansion are different from those needed during periods of consolidation and recovery. The mental approach required during times of abundance differs from that needed during times of scarcity or loss. Adapting your mental practices to match your current life circumstances increases their effectiveness and sustainability. Creating mental protocols for specific types of challenges helps you respond more skillfully when those situations arise. Having a predetermined plan for how you'll handle job loss, relationship conflicts, financial setbacks, health issues, or other common life challenges means you won't have to figure out your response in the moment when your thinking might be compromised by stress or emotion. These protocols should include specific mental techniques, support resources, and action steps you'll take. The practice of mental cross-training involves developing multiple approaches to mental mastery, so you're not dependent on any single technique or strategy. Just as physical cross-training prevents overuse injuries and develops well-rounded fitness, mental cross-training prevents overdependence on one approach and develops comprehensive mental skills. You might combine meditation with cognitive restructuring, visualization with journaling, affirmations with practical action planning. Recovery and renewal are essential components of sustainable mental mastery. You can't maintain peak mental performance indefinitely without periods of rest, reflection, and renewal. Building regular recovery practices into your life, whether through meditation retreats, nature immersion, creative activities, or simply time away from your normal responsibilities, helps prevent mental burnout and maintains your long-term capacity for mental mastery. The integration of mental mastery principles into your identity and values system makes them much more sustainable over time. When mental mastery becomes part of who you are rather than just something you do, you're much more likely to maintain these practices even during difficult times. You begin to see challenges as opportunities to live your values rather than as threats to your well-being. Continuous learning and growth are necessary for sustaining mental mastery because life continually presents new challenges that require new skills and perspectives. What worked for you in your 20s might not work in your 40s. The mental tools that served you as a single person might need adjustment when you're in a relationship or raising children. Staying curious and open to new approaches prevents your mental mastery from becoming rigid or outdated. The ultimate measure of sustained mental mastery is not the absence of difficulties in your life, but your ability to maintain your center, your values, and your forward momentum regardless of what external circumstances you face. You know you've achieved true mental mastery when challenges become interesting puzzles to solve rather than threats to your well-being, when setbacks become set up for comebacks, and when you can find meaning and growth in every experience life offers you. Chapter 15. Your mental transformation starts now. We've covered an enormous amount of ground together in this journey through mental mastery. You've learned about the unconscious programming that runs your life, the science of neuroplasticity that proves you can rewire your brain, the power of beliefs to shape your reality, the techniques for managing your thoughts and emotions, and the practices that sustain mental mastery over time. But all of this knowledge is worthless unless you take action to implement it in your life, starting right now. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. You can read every book on mental mastery, attend every seminar, and understand every principle. But until you begin practicing these techniques consistently in your daily life, nothing will change. Your brain will continue running the same old programs, creating the same old results, and keeping you stuck in the same old patterns. The gap between where you are and where you want to be can only be bridged by taking action. The most important moment in your mental transformation journey is this moment right now. Not tomorrow when you feel more motivated. Not next week when your schedule clears up. Not next month when you've finished reading more books. Right now. Because the mind that got you to where you are cannot take you to where you want to go. You must begin developing the new mind, the empowered mind, the masterful mind that creates the life you truly desire. Your transformation doesn't require perfect conditions or unlimited time. It starts with small, consistent actions that compound over time. It begins with catching one limiting thought and choosing a more empowering one. It starts with taking one deep breath before reacting emotionally to a challenging situation. It begins with spending 5 minutes visualizing your goals instead of scrolling through social media. These small shifts, practiced consistently, create enormous changes over time. The most powerful force in the universe is compound growth. And this applies to mental development just as much as financial investment. A tiny shift in your thinking, maintained consistently over time, creates exponential results. Improving your mindset by just 1% each day leads to being 37 times better by the end of the year. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and underestimate what they can accomplish in a year through consistent daily practice. You have a choice to make right now. You can close this chapter of learning and return to your old patterns, your old thoughts, your old limitations, and your old results. Or you can decide that this is the moment everything changes. You can choose to become the architect of your own mind rather than the victim of your unconscious programming. You can decide to take control of your thoughts, emotions, and focus rather than letting them control you. The person you're capable of becoming is not some fantasy or impossible dream. They're a real possibility sitting inside you right now, waiting for you to develop the mental skills that will bring them to life. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every focus you choose, every belief you hold is either moving you closer to that person or further away from them. You get to decide which direction you move with every mental choice you make. Your future self is counting on you to make this decision today. 5 years from now, you'll either be grateful that you started this mental mastery journey, or you'll regret that you continued living as a prisoner in your own mind. 10 years from now, you'll either be amazed at how much your life has transformed through mental mastery, or you'll be disappointed that you're still struggling with the same mental patterns that limit you today. The world needs what you're capable of creating, but it requires the version of you that has mastered their mind. Your family needs the confident, clear-thinking, emotionally intelligent version of you. Your career needs the focused, resilient, action-taking version of you. Your dreams need the fearless, determined, unstoppable version of you. But that person will never emerge until you commit to developing mental mastery as a daily practice. Starting your mental transformation requires 3 specific commitments. First, commit to daily mental training. Just as you wouldn't expect to develop physical fitness without regular exercise, you can't develop mental fitness without regular mental practice. Choose specific times each day for visualization, meditation, affirmation, or other mental training activities. Start with just 10 to 15 minutes per day and build from there. Second, Commit to conscious choice-making throughout your day. Every moment offers you the opportunity to choose empowering thoughts over limiting ones, solution-focused thinking over problem-obsessed thinking, growth-oriented perspectives over victim mentality perspectives. The more you practice conscious choice-making, the more automatic it becomes until empowering thinking becomes your default mode. Third, commit to continuous learning and growth. Mental mastery is not a destination, but a lifelong journey. Stay curious about new techniques, research, and approaches. Read books by people who have mastered their minds. Study the mental strategies of peak performers in every field. Attend workshops, seminars, or courses that deepen your understanding and skills. The techniques you've learned in this journey work, but only if you work them. They've been tested by millions of people across thousands of years and validated by modern neuroscience. But they require your commitment, your consistency, and your faith in the process, even when you don't see immediate results. Change happens gradually, then suddenly. So trust the process and keep practicing even when progress seems slow. Remember that your mind is the most powerful force at your disposal. Everything you've ever achieved in your life started as a thought in your mind. Every relationship you've built, every skill you've developed, every goal you've accomplished began with mental energy before it became physical reality. When you master your mind, you master your ability to create any life you can imagine. You now possess the knowledge and tools needed to transform your mental experience. And, through that, transform your entire life. The only question remaining is whether you'll use them. The techniques will work if you work them. The principles will transform your life if you apply them consistently. The power to control your mind and create your ideal reality is now in your hands. Your mental transformation starts now. Not someday, not when you feel ready, not when conditions are perfect, but right now, in this moment. Take a deep breath. Make the commitment to mental mastery and begin the most important journey of your life. The person you're meant to become is waiting for you to take the first step. The life you're meant to live is waiting for you to think the thoughts that create it. Your time is now. Your moment is here. Control your mind, and you will control your world.